baby, it's cold outside. Wait a minute, isn't that supposed to be an offensive song now? I don't know. I can't keep up with all this. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It is freezing outside. I think we're somewhere around 3 or 4 degrees right now. And as you can tell by the branches, the wind is just cutting through here, and it's just like you can feel it right through you. The snow is slowing down. I think we're about done with the snow. I don't know that we have 2 inches on the ground, but maybe. But it's cold, and it's going to keep getting colder. Hope that you are all ready for this. As crazy as it sounds, I've tried to stay most of the day outside, staying busy, doing stuff, coming in to warm up here and there, but certainly trying to endure as much of it, because I think it's really good to build up your tolerance. Now, some of you are probably laughing because you're from the great white north, where it's just cold, 9-10 months out of the year, and you get a couple of months of sunlight, and and that's it. But and I've been up there many times. I know what that kind of cold is, but this is getting pretty close to that kind of cold, especially when you factor in this wind chill. But it's good to acclimate and to build up tolerance, because with the hot weather, I mean, it's miserable. And certainly you can die in hot weather. People do. But way more people die every year because of cold weather exposure than hot weather exposure. And it's a lot easier, if I'm really hot, I sit under a shade tree and I can strip down to pretty much nothing, or I can jump in this creek, or, there's things that you can do. When you're cold and you're out in the cold, well, it's just very difficult for your body to maintain that enough temperature to kind of keep going. So it's good to kind of acclimate. Definitely be testing your gear. I talked about that, I believe it was this morning, and it's a good time of the year to be doing that, to testing your gear, making sure it all works. A lot of people and a lot of stuff on the market is electronic stuff. It's battery operated, and folks, I'm here to tell you that electronic stuff, those batteries, don't do so well when it gets really cold. I mean, it doesn't mean that they won't work. It just means that there's a greater chance that they won't work. They freeze up. That's why I advocate always having kind of some old-fashioned stuff. It doesn't mean that you only have to do things old-fashioned ways, but you should probably have it on hand. What if your chainsaw doesn't work? You can't get it to start. It's just too cold, but you've got to get that wood chopped up or cut down or whatever. Well, you should probably have a manual saw, old-fashioned saw, and some axes and splitting mauls and wedges and all that kind of stuff, because it would be really bad if you didn't make it, simply because all of your high-tech modern gear kind of froze up. It's the same way with camping and stuff. Learn to start a fire a more simple way. Bic lighters, I hear people all the time, when I've talked about learning to start fires in more primitive methods, and they'll laugh and they'll say, I'm just gonna carry a Bic lighter with me. Well, sometimes they don't work when it gets really cold. They struggle with that. I know you can put them in your pocket and stuff, but still, sometimes it's just better to try to get one started a different way, in a more old-fashioned way. So certainly have those tools and that knowledge so that you can survive that. We need to learn to do this, because in case you haven't noticed, all this global warming is sure making it awful cold. And there's an opposing theory, and I won't go into it because I'm sure the censorship is not gonna like that. But there's certainly opposing theories, grand solar minimum, other things that indicate that we're not actually getting hotter, getting colder, and that we could very much be on the precipice of another big ice age. I'm not saying that that's absolutely true. I'm not saying, because I'm not a scientist. I don't know. But I'm sure many of you have filled people in on the comments, and that's okay. So I've always advocated making sure you're prepared in the cold, and to be in the cold and to live in a colder region. You know, one of the things that I advocate is reviewing your seeds and your plans for growing gardens, food and gardens. And if you need to have certain plants, certain seeds that are capable of growing in colder climates. So let's just say you live in zone 7 or zone 8. And all of your plants, they're kind of good for that area. Well, what if something happens, some type of, earth-changing thing, and it cools us down really cold, and maybe your zone 8 is now feeling a lot more like a zone 3. Do you have seeds to grow food that does better in zone 3? Because if most of your stuff is more of a subtropical type of weather, plants, they're not going to grow very good if all of a sudden you're dealing with colder and longer winters and cooler summers. So make sure that your plants, the seeds that you're storing, make sure you have enough, especially for those of you in the southern United States. Make sure you have some seeds put away that do better in the colder climate than where you live currently, because you don't know that you may end up being in that cold climate whether you like it or not at some point. So make sure you have that down. Vehicles, make sure your vehicles are as solid as you can, and prep for that. One of the things I was telling my people, when you're getting as cold as it's going to get tonight, if you're not able to put your vehicle in a garage, or you don't have any kind of warmer to plug your vehicle in, it might be a good idea to remove the battery and bring that battery inside. If you've got enough coolant, antifreeze in the coolant to keep it from freezing, that's good. But a lot of times those batteries freeze, and that's where it gets you. They freeze and kind of expand, and then they don't hold charge. And so something that I do when it gets down to a certain temperature, which I've done already today, is I yank the batteries out of the vehicles and I bring them inside, have everything set up so that I can run out there pretty quickly, put a battery in. Doesn't take that long. But I know that the battery's charged, and in fact I brought them in and I put them on a trickle charge. That way they're topped off real good. Just little tips like that. Make sure you have stuff for your animals. It doesn't do any good to homestead and have your livestock that you're depending on food, or you're depending on fibers, or whatever it is that you're depending on your livestock for, if you don't have the ability to take care of them when the weather gets really bad. So certainly do that. Just to not switch gears too much or anything, but the possible enemy that we might be facing in a future war, in the near future, is very much acclimated to this kind of weather. I've talked about that recently. And now that it's wintertime, I think that Russia's going to probably increase their activity. It would play into their hand to do that. In fact, it would probably be foolish for them not to take advantage of the cold weather. We need to do the same. Our military over the last really 40 plus years has had very little training and development in cold weather stuff. I know this because I have, pretty much all of my friends are former military, and they've told me many experiences when they've gone on certain types of training in certain parts of the world where it's extra cold and their gear just doesn't work. It's not good enough. And so don't allow yourself to fall into the same problem as our military, it seems. Make sure that you have gear, you have the training, you have the ability to move and function and to react in the cold, because if we were to ever face an enemy, whether it's domestic or not, a lot of times they take advantage of the weather. That's why crime is mostly done at night. It's in the criminal's advantage to use the night, the cover of darkness. And so in the same way, a force may use a wintertime. They may have prepared and planned to act in the winter cold, but you haven't. And so you're at a disadvantage because of the cold. So certainly plan that way. Make sure you got your gloves that keep your fingers warm, but can you pull the trigger and accurately and use them and without getting all fumbled up? Does your weapon even work in the cold very well? Some just don't that well. Some, they do fine. How about your clothing, your gear? Are you able to put your gear on and have, layers underneath so that you're staying warm? How restricting is it? How about your boots? Do your boots stay dry? Do your boots keep your feet warm? I've talked to guys that's gone on, FTXs, field training exercises, when it's not even as cold as it is now. It's just cold and it's wet, and they've had hard times keeping their feet warm and dry. And that's miserable. Any of you that's served in any kind of combat, foot care is one of the most important things. So it doesn't matter if you've got a $200 or $300 pair of boots. Well, how do they do when you're wet and when you're cold? That's really what matters. It should be a very important thing for you. In fact, the boots that I'm wearing right now are probably older than I am. There's some old duck boots, and they're not the prettiest things, but they keep my feet warm and dry, really warm and dry. Right now, my toes are the warmest part of my body. And so, making sure that you have, good quality footwear is important. Same way with all your clothing, and try it out. Don't just believe that the label says that it's going to keep you warm at -30 and -40 degrees. Get out there and actually try it. Don't just believe that it says that it's waterproof. I can't tell you how many things over the years that I have purchased primarily because the label on it, whether it's clothing or gear or something, says that it's waterproof, only to find out later that it's only slightly water resistant. It's not really waterproof, I mean, it keeps your feet warm in water as long as it's not more than about this deep. And if it gets any more than this deep, then, well, your feet are soaking in water. So, make sure that you test your stuff. And then also make sure that you just have the stuff on hand in case something like this happens. It's very possible, I'm not saying it is, but I say it's possible, that we could be experiencing more winters like this. It does seem like they're coming more and more often. I mean, this year, this is quite early for us to be experiencing this kind of weather. And I suspect over the next day or two, we're going to hear of the problems that it causes, and hopefully, prayerfully, we don't see any people lose their lives because of it. But the reality is it's most likely going to happen. And it's pretty sad that we live in such a prosperous nation, well-developed nation, and we still have people perishing every year because it's just too cold for them. And of course, some of that is just stupidity, but the reality is sometimes it just happens. So make sure that you have your stuff ready. There's a scripture in the Bible talks about, pray that your flight doesn't happen in the wintertime. And, that's something, or at night even, in the winter or at night, make sure and pray that it doesn't happen. So pray that you don't have to survive in the wintertime or survive in inclement weather. But the reality is if you have to go through, whether it's defending yourself in your home or surviving or bugging out, odds are it's probably going to happen when the weather's really crummy. So take this as a learning experience, folks. For those of you all over that are experiencing this harsh, cold weather right now. And some of you, it's much colder than it is here, and some of you, it's just not quite as cold, and it all depends on where you're at. But take advantage of it. Certainly spend time, keep yourselves warmed up and everything. And tonight, while you're sitting around with your family, just trying to keep warm, kind of, use that comfort of being inside in your warm home, and maybe show your family a YouTube video that a friend of ours, they have a really great YouTube channel. It's called Hearth and Home Nostalgia. I'll leave a link in the description below, and they produce videos that are hours long, and what they do is they take these old-time radio shows and they kind of put them to video so that it's the audio's playing, and there may be a nice fireplace image crackling or other imagery, so that it makes it nice for the family. It's very wholesome. They're very strict on the content so that it's completely family friendly, wholesome. And I believe tonight they're putting on some old time radio shows of the old detective shows. So go to Hearth and Home Nostalgia. I'll leave a link in the description below. Tonight when you're sitting around with your family, you know, maybe it's after dinner, and you can just sit. And you know what? If the power goes out, hopefully your cell phone's working and stuff, you can power that up and sit there with your family and listen to this old-time radio show. Your kids will love it. It's a good learning experience for them, and it's just a good time for the family. All right, folks. It's time to get your houses in order. It's serious now. Quit playing around. This isn't a game. This isn't a hobby anymore. This is serious. This is surviving. This is life. This is what you need to be doing, because the world is rapidly changing. And I mean, it is going down the you-know-what fast. So get ready, folks, because we got 2023 coming here in just a few days. And I don't think it's going to get any better. In fact, I think we're in for some pretty crazy stuff this year. Get your houses in order. Prepare mentally, physically, spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.